Okay, so what up? We got the textbook. Hopefully that's on the way. Has anybody found a good deal on the textbook or anything we should settle on? Renting, yeah. There's also something called Chegg, which I hear has really good prices for renting. So there it is. So renting's always a good idea. And then Chegg is a possibility. They may rent it cheaper than the bookstore, I'm not sure. It's also on Kindle, so you can, check it out that way. And it's pretty easy to download at that point. And I'll have it up here that way too. So do get a hold of it. Next week we start, working chapter by chapter on the textbook. There will be PowerPoints, so if you're waiting for your textbook to arrive, you can keep up with the PowerPoints and stuff. Today what I wanted to do is just talk more about your media use and then also give you our first assignment, which is due on September 7th, which is the media diary. It's pretty short, and it's based on your own experience and kind of monitoring and thinking about your media use. So hopefully that'll be, it's something you could do, for instance, without having the textbook that you'd have to reference for ideas and stuff. It's all about your media use. The idea of this assignment is to, continue our thinking about your own personal use of the media. It asks you to monitor your media use over a 3-day period. So basically try to be as thorough as you can about all the media that you're using. A lot of it's localized in your phone, but you may also be listening to the radio, maybe in the car on the way to school or something. You may be listening to podcasts and streaming videos that way on your phone. You might be using conventional television. Here in this class, I consider, our purview or the things that we're interested in starts out with the mass communication media, like radio and television, and extends into personal media, like the, apps that you have on your phone. Where we sort of draw the line where we lose interest is in point-to-point personal communication, like phoning people. That's not really part of what I consider to be what we're looking at in this class. So although your phone is now a multimedia delivery device, so that's cool, we are always interested in it, but leave out of your consideration basically phone calls and stuff like that. On the other hand, there's a certain amount of point-to-point personal communication that happens within social media, and we do touch on that. Again, I always try to keep it, though, centered around stuff that is, it's like the extensions of mass media, the extensions of radio and television, so audio programming and video programming and stuff like that. But clearly, it's also closely tied together within social media now, too, that, if you go into Instagram or Facebook, you're consuming video, you're linking to other stuff at the same time as you're also possibly exchanging messages and stuff. It's an interesting question, like, how do you classify someone's news feed? Is it like a radio that's constantly on in somebody else's life 50 years ago? I don't know. So when I say monitor your media use, I'm thinking monitor your use of just about all of that stuff except for point-to-point phone calls, right? So try to keep a good list of what it is that you're doing and get a sense of how much time, if you can, that you spend on each medium that you're with. We usually know that we're heavy consumers of one type of thing or another. It's like, I watch, TV 2 hours a night every night. So that'd be, at least 14 hours of TV watching per week. And there's a lot of research done that can tell us and give us some comparisons of media use. So that's the first step, is really identify 3 days over which you can kind of watch your own media consumption, what you're doing, and take down notes about it if you can. And then the last day, one of those 3 days, I'm asking you to try to give up one of those media for a day. So choose carefully. Choose the day carefully. Choose the medium carefully. Okay. The idea, and I did this for a week. When I was a graduate student, they made us do it for a week. Imagine a week without your computer. They even chose that for us. So it was like, oh my God. Couldn't answer email. It was great when you didn't, say, hey, I was around, but I just couldn't use my stuff. So, but I'm asking you just for one day, if you can. And of course, if this puts your life or job in danger, you don't have to do that for the whole day. Try giving up something and see how it feels. Okay. So during that day, pay special attention to how that's going to feel to have one less thing. If you can give up your favorite, try that. But see.
Terrible.
Sorry? It's going to feel weird, I think. How do you think it'll feel?
Awful.
Yeah.
Or anybody.
Stressful?
Depending on whatever it is you're giving up.
Yeah.
It's like an addiction. Everybody's addicted to
Ah.
whatever it is that they like.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was going to frame it not as an addiction, but an extension. All of these media help you do stuff. They help you know stuff. They help you interact. So they're all, this goes back to an early media theorist who eventually we'll talk about him. He's in the textbook. But this fellow, Marshall McLuhan. Anyone heard of Marshall McLuhan? He's probably the media theorist that most people may have heard of because Woody Allen made fun of him and stuff in some movies. And he was kind of like this pop media theorist of the 1960s. But he looked at each medium and said the media are extensions of human capacities. They let you do stuff. The microphone takes your voice, which could usually only go, to a few people in a room, and extends it everywhere. Television takes your seeing, conscious hearing experience and allows you to project that all over the place. So it's a very, as communication theories go, it's pretty metaphoric and very broad. But when I stopped using my device for a day, I felt like someone had kind of amputated something that I could actually use. It's like, no, I can't have to tie that behind my back for the next day. So it'll be interesting to see how you guys feel about that. Just thinking around. What do you guys think you use most often in terms of media? What phone maybe?
iTunes.
Phone. Okay, yeah, that's a good idea, JP, is to break down. We got device, but maybe we should also think about apps. So iTunes. Reddit. Okay, so then and you're using that on a phone or on a laptop?
Either or.
Sorry?
Oh, please, either or.
Either or. Okay. So Reddit, let's put that there. YouTube.
Spotify.
Spotify. So we got a lot of streaming services. How about our device column is pretty
I
low
was going to say, you could get all those, like I do all that on the PlayStation.
on your phone.
PlayStation.
On the PlayStation. Okay. So
Plus
good
game.
idea. Let's just call it PS or game console or something. All right. You could have a laptop, obviously, as a device. iPad, okay.
Tablet.
Tablet, yeah.
I was going to say I anything.
I everything. Give up your I stuff.
And TV.
Okay. I haven't heard TV, radio. Yes, just TV. TV, okay. I was waiting. TV, but boy, 10 years ago, everyone would have been talking about that for sure. Radio? Does anyone still listen to radio?
Yes.
A few, yeah. Okay, not that a lot. Not a lot of people. Okay, so then there'd be, up here in our streaming might be iHeart Radio as well. I was thinking, when I said radio, I was thinking terrestrial radio, like in the car. Yeah, I think most people who raised their hand were thinking about that. But yeah, iHeartRadio. Okay. Now, in terms of time spent, wow. I mean, just in terms of in terms of individuals, I would say probably a whole lot of people. I mean, based on the long list of apps we had here, most people are consuming them through their phone, yeah, or maybe tablet or something like that. Okay. So what kind of percentage could we throw on that? I mean, again, we could sort of, I mean, media researchers actually formalize this, and they give you diaries, and you write down the times. They go back, and they very responsibly, tally it all up and figure out how much everyone's doing. But just ballpark, just from this type of thing, thinking about your own media use, if you're looking down that list of devices, what do you spend most time on? And just try to give me like a percentage. Are you like 90% of your time on the phone, or does that, again, this is all just very subjective. Researchers do a better job on this, but cool. Laptop, how much of your time? 80%? Okay. Jenny's there with 80% on, and the other stuff, do you consume any regular media? TV, okay, that might make up for the rest of it, maybe? Okay, cool.
85% phone.
Sorry?
85% phone.
85% phone, Richard? Yeah?
15% laptop.
Okay, so Richard would be 85 and then 15. So you don't consume media through, like, you don't have a TV or you don't watch TV?
I just play games on it sometimes. That's it.
Okay, okay.
Probably like full of dust, right?
Wow. ABC, CBS, NBC, they're all weeping. No, what's going to happen to us? That's interesting. A question, I mean, or anybody else just come up with the ultimate percentage? Yeah? Sorry?
70% phone,
70% phone, and the rest?
30% tablet on the laptop.
Laptop? Okay, no TV, no radios.
But I no cable.
Okay.
Just
So,
like Chromecast.
yes. Okay, cool. And then you also had something?
Well, like, if I go to work, I work like a 7-hour shift. Like, probably 4 of that is spent on a tablet. And then I come home, I spend a lot of time on my phone. So,
Tablet and phone.
tablets are really taking over the workplace and kind of changing the way that we spend our time.
When you say taking over the workplace, you mean you actually work on the tablet, or that's what you use to pass your time?
I work in a restaurant. We use a program called Revel, and it takes up a lot of time.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Again, I'm thinking just in terms of for your media use diary, I would stick to like information, entertainment, but not necessarily like workplace stuff. Just because I think it would, it probably compares better that way. Yeah. Speak up when you do. I had a note from our producer who said, I don't hear the student questions or comments loud enough. So as much as you can, speak up. And then she asked me to repeat stuff, so I will. Jenny?
So when in the diary, when you say exclude workplace, do you also mean, say, homework assignments for academic purposes as well?
Good point. It makes sense to do. No, I think you could include that. And let me. I think you should remark on how much time you spend, on a tablet at work. But I think you should spend more time thinking about or analyzing what you do voluntarily with media, like what you actually choose to do instead of have to do for your work. Let's put it that way. So don't just leave it out like it doesn't exist. But given that you have a limited space to talk about this stuff, maybe just attend to what you do more in your leisure time for entertainment or information rather than what you've got to do for work. But I think a student thing can be quite, those all kind of overlap. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy and it's like I find studying like part of my leisure or something. It kind of has to be, but I don't know. So I'd say get that in there too. Yeah. there's an interesting question here too. Is like, as you use different media, have you found that the balance of media in your life changes? So, I mean, it's been a while now. We've all had phones, but do you find that some communication media, electronic media that you use, kind of takes over? And then, do you have additional time to spend? Is it, in other words, if you've got 4 hours a day to consume media, and all of a sudden you get heavily into, I don't know, Game of Thrones or something like that, do you find yourself staying up later in order to do everything else with media, or does it take away from everything else? Because that's a huge concern to a broadcaster. They would really worry that, oh my God, you're spending so much time on, social media that you don't spend any time on TV. So what do you think about that? What's been your experience with that? Yeah?
Say like with the Game of Thrones, like I would spend, if it's Sunday, you'd spend most of your time doing stuff on the internet thinking, I just want to watch Game of Thrones, but then you probably watch TV for the hour that it's on, and that's it. And everything else is YouTube. You go see what other people think about the episode or whatever.
Right.
So you really like, if with the TV thing, I have like a little history of what I've watched, and it's for 7 weeks that it's been on. That's the only thing I've watched on TV. So 1 hour, an hour and a half TV. Everything else is YouTube or
Interesting.
pretty much it, or a video game or something like that. But
Yeah.
mainly TV is gone, in my opinion.
For you,
Yeah,
that's it.
You-
Yeah. Now we can always speak for ourselves. Yeah, there is a huge older demo still watching television. That's it. But for young folks, it is changing a
If
lot.
I have a day off, I'll watch The Price is Right.
Uh-huh.
It's still on. So,
Been on forever. Yeah, but before we had so many options, it was really like people would turn on the TV and just sit with it forever. In fact, some older people still do. Huh?
So it's like electronic media class. So if I'm reading a magazine, like a physical magazine, do I count that? Or is
I'd say, yeah, I do spend some time doing it, but don't bother working into the analysis. Yeah.
Reading it on a tablet and does that count?
Yeah, sure. That's time spent on tablet. Yeah, that's definitely relevant. Yeah. Let's see. There's another theory out there which is, I think, useful for thinking through this stuff. It's called uses and gratification. Like all of this we get to, I think, like in the 12th week of chapter 12 or something like that. But I think it's really good to bring it up just prior to doing this assignment. So a lot of media theory treats us as sort of puppets of media. They like to, especially the ones that became popular in the 1930s through the 60s for sure. They're very kind of behavioral types of things. A media message will come, you will consume it, it will change your mind about something, and you're almost like a passive receptor. And even McLuhan that we mentioned, who has an interesting way of thinking about media, maybe not as addictions, but as allowing us to do things, so extensions of our capacities. But he would also see it sort of like, well, radio extended our capacity to hear all over the world. It was kind of deterministic. Whereas this uses and gratification theory, the idea is we all use media. We use media because we want to use media for certain things. We have needs that get gratified by the media. So another interesting way of thinking about media is like, just, okay, what do people need? What does it do for us? Why? And that sort of explains a little bit about why we spend so much time consuming media. So it's a long tradition of media theory, and we'll study a little bit more of it in the textbook, let's say. But some of the things that it can point our attention to, because that's the whole thing about this assignment, is we're thinking about what we do with media. So the media that we use, listing it and keeping track of that, that's important. But another set of concerns might be like, why do I care about that particular thing? So uses and gratifications theory would, since we have a need to be informed. We need to know like what's going on. Maybe not so much nationally, maybe more locally, but the media fills that void of information that we might want. There are, they kind of break them down in certain language that we don't need to worry about now. But the need to be entertained is obviously it's like you're bored. It's like what's on. The need for a good story, kind of, that'll a good episode of something can fill that need. Social integrative needs, so that may be also, that category is more like being on social media, finding out what people are doing. There's a huge need there, which that part of the electronic media has, as we're all aware of, it's kind of grafted itself onto our social lives and extended that, beyond our face-to-face interactions with people, which would have defined our social, activities. Now it's like electronically extended out to a whole bunch. So you may be spending time on that and satisfying that need. And of course, there's all those anxieties we'll talk about eventually. It's like, is the electronic satisfaction of the social integrative need, healthy? You know what I mean? It's like this. Oh, am I spending too much time with my virtual friends and I have none anymore? And is that really suitable for us? So those are questions eventually that we could come up with. Affective needs as well. I talked about my podcast lullabies last class. Just to remind you of my oversharing tendency here in class, but it was like the idea that it's like okay, you wake up totally stressed out. What am I going to talk about in class tomorrow? Or will will all the 20 different apps that I need to get, are they going to work or whatever? So yeah, put on like some podcast and listen to David Axelrod talking to a senator. It's like instantly you're asleep. So. That might be an effective need. So as you do this, another cool thing is to take, just think about, well, what am I actually doing here? Keeping up with friends, that's your kind of social use of it. Reading the news. How many news junkies we got? Okay, a few. Myself, I'm trying to wean myself off the habit. Kaylee, is it all Trump related or is it beyond that? Oh, thank you, Richard. Good. Myself, I fell down the Trump hole, I gotta say. So I'm trying to get out of there. It just seems like we're on an endless loop of like stuff there. So so information needs and stuff like that. So this is, the assignment doesn't dig as deep as, we'll have other assignments where I'll actually say, okay, use this theory or think about this theory. But in our actual assignment here, it's more open. Track your media use for 3 days and try to give up something and really pay attention to how you feel about having given something up. And then the second part is sort of, call it the analysis or the write-up. And that would be more about, so what did you discover in thinking about what you did with media for 3 days? Were you, surprised by, looking over your total time or something, how much time you actually spent with something? Or did you realize that you use a particular medium more or less than you thought you would? And so those kind of insights only come with sort of careful record keeping of how much media you're using. Usually you can tell when you read these over. This is an easy assignment if you pay close attention to what you do. If you just kind of don't really pay any attention and make it up at the last minute, then it's like, it's tough to do this assignment because you really learn nothing. You're basically just putting in some assumptions and then trying to draw something back. So if you do spend a good 3 days thinking about, monitoring, you can usually come up with some interesting insights. So, some questions here, which these are not absolutely required that you hit all of these questions. These are to get you thinking about what you could write. So what media do you spend the most time with? And then also think about money, like how much is it worth to you? That's another indicator of how much you actually value a particular medium. Are you willing to spend money? How do your media choices relate to your interests and personal identity? So who called out Reddit? Who's on Reddit? Who mentioned Reddit? You did? Okay. So I mean, there's Reddit's for every sort of information need that you might have and stuff. But also, does your media consumption also reflect certain aspects of how you see yourself? Like I think the music, your choice of music and stuff is often reflective of a kind of a personal identity. But check that out. As in your media use, do you care that you have an Android or an iPhone, or what does that say about you? That's the thing. And maybe it says nothing about you, in which case you don't have to answer it. But it's an idea. How does your media usage compare to or contrast with that of your classmates? What conclusions can you draw about the media usage of your age group in general? So, next week we'll try to discuss a little bit as each class, just to ask people how it's going and stuff. But even if you can't, again, even if you don't know exactly what all your classmates or how they're working with media, how they're consuming media, this idea of comparing with how other people use media is useful. In other words, we're all individuals, we all do our own thing, but are we also part of just large groups of people who do things in particular ways? It's thinking about demographics, that people of a certain age will consume a certain way. I did it myself. I said the TV audience is still there, but they're 45 and over, probably, right? You look at the audience for Reddit. There's no way they're 45 and over. It'll be way lower age. So, try to think about that. There is. Sure, JP.
What do you mean by your presentation?
Where
it said it at the bottom.
Let me just look at that. I'll let you know, okay? But just on this thought, some research that we have here for people 8 to 18 in the textbook. So even if we can't, know exactly what's going on with our class, but with people 8 to 18, you can get a sense of some of the numbers. And this would have been done. It's important to note also the date, which we would have to go through, because things change as well in terms of that. Checking out that, just some of that hard research there. Just would love to know exactly when this was done. 55 plus. Yeah, well, no point in tying things up with this right now. Let's assume that it's relatively recent, but that's something to think about, because as more, the devices trickle down to younger users, and that changes the balance of things too. I bet 20% of media time on a mobile device for 8 to 18-year-olds is probably it's growing, and but there's some numbers anyway. Now, JP, you were asking, you had a question about something at the bottom on the assignment.
Please be concise, very precise.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Concise
In your presentation. Well, let me clear that up. So what I meant by presentation there is that when you write this up, keep it short. So there's no presentation in front of the class, but so let me write that if I can.
But you said there is a presentation from?
You said there is not.
There is not.
Not for this assignment. There is no presentation for this assignment. On November 7th and 9th, there is a presentation for something different.
Okay.
So let me write in your, shall I write in your essay? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's clear enough. So thanks for helping me clarify that. And also, you know, if there's an example down here as well, which again, I wish I could easily go kind of full screen on, like, I should just go back to the student view, right? Student view, student view. And modules, or let's just go to assignments. Media use diary, there we go. Now we'll see the whole thing. Yeah, so here's an example from class in 2014. So her experience is probably a little different, but she's, you know, she's a student, full-time student, so she would have a profile that maybe, you know, you could even kind of compare yourself to her if you wanted to, if you're searching around for something extra to say about, you know, what you're doing in media. Before deciding what electronic media I wanted to give up for the second phase of this project, I made the wonderful mistake of dropping my phone in the toilet. Instead of giving up media for one day, I was without a phone for 3 days. Needless to say, my awareness of how dependent I am on my phone was greatly enhanced from this experience. Being phoneless for a few days was a real inconvenience, and so on and so forth, from all of the different things she does on her phone. So that's a bit of a catastrophe. Anyhow, so this is a good one. It's maybe a little bit longer than you might write, but it also has, you know, someone coming up with honest insights based on their own experience of this, which is what this is all about. Yeah.
I have a question. How old was this lady who wrote this?
Early 20s, I guess. Yeah.
I'm just curious because I know people who are younger are getting different types of cell phones compared to people who are a little bit older.
What kind of cell? How do you mean? You're saying?
Waterproof.
My dad is still learning how to text.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Or what it means to live stream.
Oh yeah, sure.
Like that, where people who are my age, and I'm 26, we can text no problem. We could probably even do it with our eyes closed.
Right. Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a whole set of competencies and skills and knowledge that are different based on different demographics. Yeah, that's another interesting way of looking at media. Basically, is like it's clear to us the stratifications of, you know, like old folks, like my mom can't use a computer even, you know, and she's in her 80s. And then you get down into your 60s. They're okay with computers, but they're probably not okay with, you know, texting and stuff like that. And as you go down, you know, you have different competencies, basically, and skills. It's a nice thing to think about that is that, you know, it gives people credit for all the things that they know how to do practically. You know, I mean, old folks go, oh, you spend all your time texting. It's a skill. It's like some people are doing. So she was like a typical sort of San Francisco State college student age type of thing. But you know, you take a look over it. But I think that some, you know, because I've read literally hundreds of these, because over at State this class has usually 120 to 140 students in it each semester. So yeah. People are usually surprised by how intricately woven into their lives the media are. It's like you almost forget that they're there or that you're using them until they disappear, you know. Another interesting thing they find when researchers ask people, okay, what media, you know, devices do you have in your house? People, you know, everyone remembers their phone. They might remember their TV, but there's like people often have 3, 4 radios in their house. You know, like we're talking now, I guess, a demo. You know, like let's say 25 to 50. People have tons of radios that they don't even think about because they don't turn them on, but they're there. You know, and so some media becomes so taken for granted it just kind of disappears. So it's interesting, and if you think about it, I mean, there's not a lot of hard read. Again, we'll discuss a lot of this too. But when we're thinking about the mental consequences of having with you a phone on which you can look up all kinds of information at any time, or constantly interact with people that you know but who are away. All of those are, we just dive into it, experience it, and it changes us. And we don't even really think about it too much. You'll get people, oh no, social media, it's killing us. But it's pretty interesting. This is powerful stuff. That's what I'm saying. And this is a great way in, which doesn't require reading a ton of textbooks or stuff. It requires looking at what you do and thinking about it, and then writing up a short sort of consideration of it. So that could be cool, I hope. How many people planning to give up their phone? How much? Oh, not too many. Dylan, okay.
I thought we were talking about apps.
No, you would have to give up an actual device. So I'm glad we brought that up. Okay? Give up an actual device. Because, not having Spotify for a day is not going to be that bad. Yeah?
Just turning like your cellular data and Wi-Fi off, but just keeping the hard phone count. Because
if
phone for work.
Right, yeah. I don't want you to do anything that would harm you at work or whatever. So yeah, if that's the way you have to do it, then do it. Yeah, because that is, yeah, we don't want you to get punished at work or something for not being able to do it. Jenny?
Tagging along that same question, in my case, I have two separate ones. This one is inactive, and this is one that I receive calls on and make calls on. So certainly it'd be really hard to give up this.
Yeah, so don't give that one up, especially since point-to-point personal communication is not really our thing. You know what I mean? It's in other words, phone calls, we're not really interested in that so much as would be multimedia use of the phone or something like that.
If I weren't to listen to music.
Yeah. I mean, my thought was that you give up a whole device over a day, which if you're recording everything, you don't want to give that up either. So again, I think the point of this is give up something which is painful enough so that you feel that it's absent. If it doesn't mean anything to give it up, then what's the point? But, and again, 24 hours, maybe not. Maybe try it for 6 hours if you can, and see how it disrupts. Yeah.
Most of us are on our phones. I guess what you'd be saying is give up certain apps because we still have.
That comes back to Richard.
People, but give up the most important things that connect you to media.
Yeah, give up your media type apps. Again, texting is a point-to-point personal communication, so I don't care about that. So you keep that. We're not trying to target that.
Keep our phone and then turn off our cellular data and Wi-Fi, and then use our laptop as a source of
Everything else.
How to get around all of this? I don't know. Let me see. What can we do? Yeah, I don't know. I'm shocked. You're fighting back. Do you have an idea? Save us.
I said addiction in the beginning. I didn't mean it super literal, but kind of, because it's how many reasons and things that come out immediately. It's just you want to give up your phone? It's what about my Wi-Fi? What about my apps? What about this? That's straight drug addiction. I didn't mean it super literal, but it is literal.
It just shows, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
No idea. I have no solution. But
Right. Cool. I mean, addiction is a great shorthand for saying that we have a need for it and that we're, taking it away from us. We would feel that, and that's what I want. I want you to crave. Yeah. But I don't want you to, lose touch with your friends or with work, and if that is something that you find unacceptable. But there are people who, having given up their phone for a day, said, I felt totally out of touch with everybody and everything, And that was, I think that's a a valid learning experience. But if you don't want to have that experience, then give up something else, I guess. Yeah. And Richard?
Can we do it like that? If we turn our phone off, can we still use our computer or something? Or
If you have to work around, sure, because you'll still be finding out about what mobility means to you. If the phone is so convenient because it goes with you everywhere. If you decide to give up the phone, but you keep in touch with everybody and do everything by the laptop, you'll still have the experience of reduced mobility. So that might be useful to you. Yeah, yeah. I'm certainly not. I'll let you guys define what it is you feel is going to be worthwhile giving up. Let's put it that way, because it's too silly to say, okay, on the phone you can turn off the Wi-Fi and then, apps or whatever. It's like, give something up, and we'll see if you actually learn something from giving it up. Hopefully you will. If you don't, I'll say you should have given up more, but we'll see. How many people believe that we can be addicted to these things? By the way, it's an interesting idea. Okay, okay. Addiction bears a certain amount of unpacking, I guess, is a term. What do we mean exactly by addiction?
Brainwaves.
Brainwaves, okay. All right. But other ideas, so let's put in
I'm going to give an example, like when I said it, like 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, there was a UFC pay-per-view, John Jones and Cormier, and I had a couple of my friends over, and I rarely use my phone just to text. I don't have any apps, and so I paid money to watch this pay-per-view, so I'm like, I'm going to watch it. My friends are there, and two of them, I don't know what it is, Instagram or Facebook or whatever they're on, and they're literally just doing this. They're not even stopping for a whatever, and they put it down for 5 minutes. My friend's phone buzzes. They're like, oh, not even him, and he's like, and that's the addiction part, I think. It's just this. It's like you don't even have anybody to call or to talk to, and so that's the addiction. I don't know if it means much in the long run. Like you probably don't think about it at all, or when you find yourself looking at something you don't care about on the internet, and you're like, what am I doing? Like then you put it away.
Thanks for that example. That's a great example. Yeah.
And I think it has an effect on our personal experiences because, I was in Europe in March. It was my first time over there, and I got over there, and I was able to use my phone, but it costs so much more to use data to use any map or anything. So I had to go get an actual map when I was going through Dublin or London. I'm like, where am I? But it totally just put kind of a damper on my entire time. I was just kind of all right, let me just go figure this out now in a real way, not just pulling up my phone and okay, go there.
Right, right. So that speaks to how it becomes an unconscious kind of supplement to what we do. It's like as though you didn't have any shoes when you went on your vacation. It's like we're used to having shoes, and all of a sudden, damn, what is this? Yeah. So, yeah, okay.
A good example too is when you get on the airplane, and even if it's a 1 hour flight or something, you turn off your phone or you have airplane mode or whatever. When everyone gets off, everyone's staring at their phone. Emails, texts, what's going on with Donald Trump. Random things like that.
What happened in the last hour?
Right, yeah. You can just find out
Yeah.
all this stuff. Everyone's on their phone, whether they're getting their stuff from their backpack up in wherever you put your backpack. But everyone's staring at their phones
Got you. Yeah.
before they get on and right after.
It's true. Nika says, here, every moment not spent doing something must be spent on the phone. Thank you, Nika. Right. And as you were talking, the little thing went ding, and I said, oh, there's something coming through on this channel. And I was like, I'm trying to pick it up, right? Yeah?
I was gonna say with addiction, it's just so easy for us to, like he said, just with the flick of a thumb, to either be viewing for hours and hours, just pictures, videos, anything, stuff you like, you don't like, just looking at complete shit, anything on the internet. It's so easy to fall into that addiction while you're, like you said, waiting. I don't know, you guys were waiting to watch a game or something. Just waiting to watch a game while you're on the toilet, while you're waiting to use the bathroom, while you're in an elevator, anywhere. It's so easy to just get into the addiction of broken or something like that on the screen. That's it.
Yeah.
How I see
Yeah.
that.
Also, I've noticed when I've been like addicted to a certain app, I'm on the app and there's nothing, no new anything. So I go to another app, I close that one, but then I go again like automatically to that one again, like not even a minute later to check. I'm like, wait, I just closed that app.
Right.
Why am I checking it again?
Right, but it's kind of a habit sort of
Yeah,
pathway.
it's
It's
just
just,
a habit,
I'm going to
just
check
like
that. I'm going to
first thing
check
you do,
that. Yeah, yeah. I have that. I feel that too. Yeah.
I have a friend who can't go to a restaurant and eat without having YouTube going on the phone.
Wow, that's distracting. Yeah.
That's what I guess to do it, I guess.
Right, right. So you're far from a microphone, so I'll just repeat what you said. But you said you have a friend who goes to a restaurant and watches YouTube all the time, and yeah, and we're all.
Maybe the outside meal. YouTube.
Oh man. Hey, what?
When I was a high school student, I have an experience. I have a year of giving up a phone. I haven't used the phone for a year. That's my school rule back in my country. And after finish a year of studying abroad in Canada, I was like intentionally trying to catch up because I couldn't use the phone for a year. So after like a few months, I've been using cell phone for all the time, and all my friends are always using it. And we chat each other. Even when I was with my friends at the same place. So like.
So you're like in the same room and you're still chatting that way. Wow, 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 wow. But that's interesting that you said that once you got the phone back, you were trying to catch up and basically, yeah. So I mean, I think that's part of why we feel that this media technology is beyond our control in a way, because that I think at the heart of this idea of addiction is that we don't have a choice. It's like, when you see someone who's addicted to drugs or something, it's like they've lost control of being able to, they've lost their agency over what drugs, or in this case, it's the technology. And in some, what we're seeing I think the anxiety about that is we see so much habitual behavior. It's new. We don't know the boundaries of how far this can go. And it's transformed a lot of what we're experiencing. So we call it an addiction. But it's a really good idea to, when we term something with a powerful word like addiction, that we understand what we mean about it. And this is interesting discussion. It should go on, as we know we're talking about habitual behaviors. We're talking about things that might have been considered antisocial before that are now kind of like your friend watches YouTube the whole way. You have friends over and they don't even attend to what you, or you paid for this pay-per-view and they're like not even really, although they want, and so it's transforming a lot of stuff. And it's addiction is always it's like
Strong word.
It's a strong word, but it's also like, I don't know if you ever had anyone in your family who's it's like people tend to say, well, shame on you, and then someone else will say, well, it's actually it's an illness. It's not, it's beyond my choice. There's this whole kind of
repercussions that come from.
We're also like not so sure whether we really do have the strength to overcome it, or whether we really are just like addicted, weak. It's real interesting. Let me get to let's get Jenny and then yourself and then yeah.
I said brainwaves earlier because essentially I am a news junkie and I have watched a lot of investigative research segments on exactly this topic. And with regard to brainwaves, as you mentioned, this is relatively new. Whether it be iPhones or apps, laptops, pads, and even computers, they've all only sprouted like this as far as personal convenience within the past 20 or 30 years. However, the body, and especially the brain, has taken centuries and decades and millennia to evolve. And with these particular technologies, the engineers have even hailed the help of some psychologists to specifically develop them addictively because we are still using our primitive brain day in and day out. And with the primitive brain, there are things like anxieties and even the light in and of itself. It can go ahead and disrupt your ability to sleep, no less think carefully or think within the moment. And there is one segment in my own personal favorite, 60 Minutes, which literally did go ahead and attach electrodes to this focus group and had them take away their phones and their iPads and just really live in the moment. And you can see their brainwaves spike.
Interesting. If you have a link to that, that'd be great.
I can provide it. I'll send it to you.
Thanks. That'd be fantastic. Yeah.
Well, she kind of already answered my question, but you used this term addiction. I instantly think of when you take away the object of the addiction, there's a withdrawal. So I was going to ask, what's the withdrawal?
Anxiety.
Agitation.
Yeah. I actually didn't have I still don't have a smartphone. I just got an iPad just like 6 months ago. And I used to, think it was stupid to get addicted to your cell phone, and people were on it like way too much. But I'm on my tablet 24/7 now, and it's basically the same kind of thing. I bring it with me wherever I go, and it's when I don't have it around, or I don't have internet around or something like that, I get really like this. I feel like I haven't had a cigarette in a little while. I can feel it.
Interesting.
I think there's actual.
And it may well show up in your brain waves too. I'm not sure. We were going to get to you.
Well, when she said about everybody getting on their phones the second a plane lands, I tongue in cheek said, "Oh yeah, smartphones are the new cigarettes," but like they kind of are. It's like something that we can preoccupy our hands with. And like I noticed that like I feel like kind of an asshole when I'm on my phone all the time. Especially in BART stations, you look around, everyone's on their phone. Nobody wants to make eye contact with each other.
Yeah.
So I like make a conscientious effort to put my phone away as much as I can, and feel holier than thou because I've put my phone away for 5 seconds. But when I do, I'm really uncomfortable by silence. It's like if there's nothing stimulating me, I get kind of like I gotta look at some stupid Unilad article or anything is better than just being with myself for 5 seconds. And I mean, I think everybody, we're just really overstimulated people. Not being stimulated makes us so uncomfortable, and screens are just another way of doing that. Probably arguably better than cigarettes. But.
Yeah, interesting. Richard?
I feel like the internet has opened like a dream state to like every brain in the world where each and every person can find their own little world in there, and this little device gives this opportunity to find their own little world. So everybody's trying to figure their own little world out there. That's how I feel. Either they have music or something they want to learn, or how to make money, or I don't know, some article what they want to learn or whatever. It has opened this whole big dream world for everybody, and then it's kind of sad in one way, but it's kind of good if you see in a positive way where people can learn something from a small corner in the world while it's kind of nice to me, but I know that people are overusing and misusing it a lot.
So you're thinking more about the media as opening people up to different information, giving them access to different experiences. Yeah, and another anxiety that we all have is the idea that people live in their silos of information, their own realities. I think you're touching on that when you say it's opened up a dream world to people. I was going to ask you, can we unpack the idea of a dream world, which is probably super heavy philosophy for us right now, but part of what you were saying I would just interpret as being like, okay, everybody has the ability now to exist within their own sort of predefined information universe, and that's come up a lot just because the alt-right publications just seem to have the world so differently than the New York Times does, and yet, they've got dedicated readers who believe in what they read passionately. They believe this is reality, and is that what you mean about the dream world thing? Yeah, it begs the question as to, how do we all live in reality? So
It's like what you said, like, the moment we have some free time, we run to that world
Yeah,
just to feel safe, or just
it's
to
interesting.
even a little silence, as she said. Like I
Yeah,
totally
yeah.
agree with her.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what we do. If we
Yeah.
get, like a second of something, we feel so weird that we have to run to that world just to be, happy for that while.
Right. Real life is not as predictable. You could, find out things you don't like, things that could happen that aren't pre-programmed by Disney or whatever. Sir, and then you guys? Yeah.
Yeah, like to dovetail on what she said, roughly about 5 or 6 years ago, there was a student from some state university that was gunned down at random, like in the neighborhood over here. And one of the things that the news described was that the guy was flashing his gun all night, and no one saw it because everyone was too busy.
Oh my God.
He actually had his gun on him. You can look it up. It's like a random student, basically.
Okay. So the idea that people are so consumed in the media world that they don't notice what's going on in the real world.
It's already off.
Oh, okay.
Gun
Yeah.
control, that's a different story.
Yeah.
It's kind of like in the cigarette comparison. I smoked for like a really long time, and like if I'd be in class and I'd probably get like that craving, it'd be all I would think about, class to get over so I can have that cigarette and have it in my hand before I'm out the door, And if my phone vibrates, sometimes that happens, we're just like, what was that? And I can't wait to check, and I can't if I'm in class or something like that, it just starts
Same
getting
thing.
your attention.
Yeah.
What's that?
Sorry?
Pavlovian. It's like you just
Yeah.
one little
Ding.
thing and
I got to go look for it. Yeah. Yeah. And Dylan?
After bringing all of these ideas up, it started making me think, you think this is all dependent on location? For example, we live in San Francisco, which is kind of, one of the most expensive cities. It is the most expensive city in this entire country. I'm thinking, I don't know if anyone's ever lived elsewhere. Maybe we're all natives, but the point is when everyone's, I haven't traveled too much, but I'm thinking on a different place on Earth, are these many people using their phones all the time, or is it because we're in such a major, role-playing city, especially because Twitter's here now, Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg lives less than 7 miles away.
Do you have an answer?
I wanted to kind of expand on what he's saying. Yeah, I think it's maybe indicative to just population growth and why we want to live in this kind of downside world is because we live in cities now, and all cities kind of are becoming that, really overcrowded. So I think just as the human population grows and grows and grows more and more, we're going to need to live in our own little worlds. It's just too much to, if we go to the bar station and say hi to every single person we see, it's just too many people, too many faces for our brains to, so we want to live in that. I don't know. Maybe that's just
Yeah. I think we've, prior to this generation of media, there have been places of great, concentration. But I think humans probably have different ways of adapting to that. But I think it is a stress. Again, put 1,000 mice into a tiny little area, and there'll be a lot of stress on them and a lot of negative repercussions.
I'm not saying everybody is
Yeah.
I just mean the majority of people, because cities and technology, these are all new things to human beings, like she was saying about evolution.
Yeah. In a way, what you're saying is reminding me of this idea that one of the uses and gratifications of media, like tension-free needs, or the idea of it might just be soothing, calming, relaxing, or something like that. It's an idea. But it's interesting. Dylan, I don't know. There's probably some research about media use in different countries and stuff, and it would be interesting to see.
I'll send them that article, and he'll show you it. One of them
Yeah, I'll
is
post it.
literally a TV segment itself, so you can watch it.
There you go. So you can stimulate yourself.
Did Jenny? You had something to say?
I was just going to go ahead and add on to what you said. I think you personally brought on a really good point. We are in San Francisco, no less than U.S., the majority part of the first world country versus a third world country, say Dubai or Mumbai or whatnot. So taking, for example, my mom, she's over 60, and I've taught her how to use a cell phone, yet she still doesn't know how to press 1 to check her voicemails, no matter how many times I've taught her, and no matter how many times her employer yells at her. In addition to which, there was this book that I've read called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, and I reference that because it goes back to the point that I was bringing on earlier with regard to brain waves and our primitive brain. I mean, again, these technologies, be they app phones, the computer, no less dial-up or DSL, they've only come spawned within the past 30 or 40 years, versus our brains have morphed over centuries and millennia, and it really can't keep up. And these technologies are spiking into the primitive tactics and strategies and behaviors of that of which we were wired to. So there is a
But like
reason
he
for
said,
it.
though, too, it's like so much of it is an extension of people's
Right.
thought process, so it's not necessarily, there's so much positive that can come from it, like, instead of negative. So, like, with what he said, I think if the world was given the opportunity to have perfect Wi-Fi and no ping and perfect, everything, of course they'd be using it, because there's so much positive that can come from it, if you use it the right way. If you can learn things from it, then everybody would use it. I mean, like Zuckerberg
it's
is
not just all
trying
negative.
to bring to Africa, right? He was trying to bring Wi-Fi to that continent that has nothing, no satellites for it.
Yeah, I didn't get a sense that Jenny was saying
No,
anything.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that. I just mean
I'm not painting
as
it
an
in a
extension.
negative.
You're thinking that there's pluses and minuses to it.
Yeah, I think there's even more positive than there is negative, for sure.
All things in good moderation. so
Okay,
just one
can we
thing
come back here to just thinking about addiction, okay? Because this is, I'll get to you in a sec, Dylan. Yeah, so addiction, just in terms of, I'm trying to just emphasize, I mean, in these discussions, we all get a chance to say what we think, but also the outcome of some of these discussions is also, can be formalized into learning stuff and us working together and learning stuff. And I'm not much of a scientist or a mathematician. I do think a lot about words and concepts and stuff. And it was really interesting that addiction came up today. And just in our discussion, I would like to point out, so that we don't walk away and walk out of the room with the same notion of addiction in mind, we were talking about things such as Jenny did, where we're really talking about the way that your body and your psychology are hardwired, and the way that putting a new kind of stimulus in your hand interacts with that. But we were also talking about habitual behaviors, like when you sit down, you put your pack of cigarettes on the table because it makes you feel safe, because you know that they're there and that craving won't get you. But now you put your cell phone down there, exactly there. Like, where is it? Like, I get up, I walk out. It's like, okay, I should check it or something like that. So these are habits that are built into just the way you live. Like, you learn to walk, like you have your stuff. Social pressure, right, is another aspect of this addiction. So it's not about your brainwaves being rewired. Maybe it's about your friends, saying, well, how come you didn't get back to me or something like that. So there are, kind of penalties to be paid for not joining in with the latest set of communication, behaviors, So, and these could be contrasted as sort of cognitive ideas about addiction, versus behavioral ideas about addiction, where it's really a question of your psychology and how you have to be. So just pointing that out. That's all. That in all that we've been talking about, we have a lot more detail and understanding of what we could mean by addiction. And of course, there's that other aspect we talked about, which is the fundamental part of the concept of being addicted is that you lose control. You cannot control this. And it's always, even when we're talking about something so clearly physical as a drug addiction, there's always people who are saying, now, if you're strong enough, you can go cold turkey, you can, so there's always an ambiguity as to whether any addiction is beyond our ability to control it or not. Certainly it's out there. So next time you have a conversation about how we're all addicted to your phones, you can break it down a little bit. That's all I'm saying. And that is learning. That is learning that we're doing here. Now, Dylan, back to you.
I was just gonna say it's kind of like when cavemen found fire, and except now it's almost like keep on finding a new fire every other day because of how many apps are being created, and it's kind of like if you don't hop on to this new app, like you fall behind, and then it becomes kind of like this race to who has the most accessibility to things.
Yeah, you got it. Pace of technological change seems really, really fast.
Yeah, especially it's kind of like sports too. Like how I don't know, like you hear your friends and they're talking about the game. And you're like, well, I mean, personally, I don't watch sports, so then I go up to them like, oh, what are you guys talking about? They're like, oh, you don't know, dude. I'm like, no. and then you feel behind,
What's wrong
and
with
then
you? Right.
and then you of course try to watch the game.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just pointing at social pressure. It's like being out of the loop is sort of, it's kind of it's a social pressure put on you to know what everyone else knows, to be interested in what everyone else knows.
That's the old school social pressure. The sports. I don't know what you're talking about. Now
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I'd say they all fall under the same category. It's like it's not like you need it for your brainwaves. You need it to just stay up on the same level as all your friends. Yeah. Okay, so do your darndest to get that textbook, and the assignment is up here. Think of what you want to give up and start monitoring your behaviors. Thanks. That was a really interesting discussion.